All right.
Okay, Paul, tell me this. What was your biggest surprise with these CFP rankings?
I think the fact that schools that probably haven't accomplished anything this year, Molly, have been rewarded so handsomely. And I know I'll upset all the folks in Bloomington, but I'm still not sure what Indiana has done. They've beaten some very mediocre non-conference teams. They've blown out a couple of other ones. And also Penn State, which has done absolutely nothing this year. Their best wins are over Illinois and a 5-loss Lincoln Riley Southern Cal team. We'll save that for another day. But I also want to caution everyone, just like you hear up and down the dial and other things. It's very early. A lot of these schools are going to take care of themselves. So I'm not going to go mad dog here and start screaming about the first reveal because we're still 5 weeks away.
Well, I generally agree with you there, Paulie. They overrated the Big Ten. Ohio State's not the second best team in the country. Georgia is. Indiana's played the best-rated team they've played so far on their unbeaten streak is 35th in the country. I mean, they have, come on, that's ridiculous. And Penn State only drops to 6 when they can't beat anybody. I don't understand that either. Penn State, they're not that good. And I'll throw one other thing out there. Why is Miami 4th? What is out of the ACC? Why is Miami? They almost lost to California for crying out loud. They blew it. They had to come from 18 down in the fourth quarter. Plus, they showed by 11 to Duke on Sunday afternoon. And don't give me where you got to put them 4th because they represent the ACC and the top 4 get the buys. Well, if that's the case, why isn't BYU up there? Because BYU represents the Big 12 and they're undefeated. And they wanted SMU, which is a far better win than Miami has. So those two things. Penn State overrated, and why in the world is Miami so high, ranked number 4?
Well, first of all, I don't have a problem with Miami being ranked in the top 5 because they're undefeated. And I'm going to give respect where respect is due, and they've got one of the most prolific offenses in the nation. So when you're putting up points, okay, and you've got a Heisman candidate, which they have in their quarterback, I'm going to pay attention to that and say Miami is justified being a top 5 team. Ohio State, Georgia, I get your point about that because Georgia's lone loss was them being down 28, coming back and taking the lead to Alabama before Milroe connected with the freshman to save the day, okay? I get that part. But the flip side to it is that I don't have Georgia being 3 instead of 2 when I see what Alabama was in the aftermath of that win over Georgia, losing to Vanderbilt, okay, and then ultimately Tennessee. Ohio State's got 1 loss on their docket. That was the number 1 ranked Oregon, and that was only by 1 point, 32-31. So I got to pay attention to that as well. My question to you, Paul Finebaum, how do you feel about where Alabama is placed at number 11? Because I'm not going to lie to you. I wouldn't have had a problem with them being outside of the top 12, looking in and have them having to prove themselves by showing up against LSU this weekend. What are your thoughts?
Well, Stephen A., we haven't talked in a while, but that loss against Vanderbilt, now I'm not trying to eject you from your seat, isn't as bad as it looked 4 weeks ago. I mean, I know I'm hearing, Vanderbilt, listen, I think Vanderbilt could beat a lot of those Big Ten teams that we're sitting here whining about. Vanderbilt went down to Auburn last weekend and won. They have been impressive. So I think as far as Alabama is concerned, they're about where they ought to be, but it really doesn't matter where they are because if they win Saturday night, they have a straight shot in to the playoffs. And I know how down you are, and you can feel however you want, but I don't think they're in bad shape here. I'm not saying it's easy to go to Tiger Stadium on a Saturday night. Everybody knows what that is, Doggy and Stephen A. But they really do control their own destiny right now. And that's remarkable considering how bad they have been. But that win against Georgia, it may not be enough to trump Ohio State, but it's enough to get them in, assuming they can win this weekend. So they are really in surprisingly good shape as long as they do what they didn't do 2 years ago with your guy, Nick Saban, when they lost in overtime.
Here's a good question for you, Paul. And I've been thinking about this, and what are they going to do here? Let's say Texas A&M beats Texas. They play them Thanksgiving weekend in College Station. Okay? That means they play in the SEC championship game. If they do that and lose to Georgia, are they going to put them in this tournament with 3 losses?
No.
Well, even though they would
Texas,
be a fairly weak
and second in the conference. Yeah. Go ahead.
Here's what's interesting. I don't think you should be penalized at that point because you have other schools who won't be playing in a conference championship game, like a Penn State, like Notre Dame, which of course isn't in a league. So it's a real tricky situation. I'm not convinced Texas A&M is going to get to that point, though, because they have a trip to Auburn. They have other games, and they looked terrible last Saturday night. But it's a fair question, Doggy, and this is where these conference championship games in many ways are getting in the way. I like the fact that you can win a berth and a first-round bye. What we're talking about here is the NFL, but the idea of you winning a berth in your conference game and getting knocked out seems ridiculous.
I think that's going to be very interesting. Yeah. And I'll tell you right now, they overrate this Big Ten. Paulie, look, I mean, Illinois stinks. They stink. Washington's not any good. USC you mentioned. Northwestern's terrible. Purdue loses every game 55-0. Wisconsin can't score. I mean, there was a lot of bad teams in the Big Ten.
That's fair.
Jeez.
That's fair.
But
I also have to pay attention to the fact that Indiana is 9-0. All right, and it's the first time they've won more than 8 games since 1967.
I know, they've had a great year.
So I can't ignore that.
Look at you with the throwback stats. Sound like Mad Dog over there. Let's get into one of your favorite hot topics here, Stephen A., your guy, Coach Prime. In Colorado, currently ranked 20th. What do you think, Paul? Do you think Colorado will make the college football playoff?
No, I think they'll come very close. I think this weekend is tricky. They have a couple of other games. But the fact that we're even having a conversation on the 6th of November, to me, it may not be surprising to Stephen A., but it's shocking to me because I undervalued them and I overvalued the rest of the league. Not sure right now they have enough to get past BYU. But I think if they did, Stephen A., we're talking about one of the greatest, most significant and important college football stories of all time.
I'm about to annoy the living hell out of Doggy with what I'm about to say, but it's important that I say it. You know, box office appeal matters. It really, really does. And when you look at prime time, it's one thing for him to be the face of the institution and to be the draw that he has unquestionably proven to be. But that son of his, Shedeur Sanders, is a big-time player. All right? He may be relatively miniature in size compared to what we're accustomed to seeing some quarterbacks be, but that brother he can throw that football. He will stand in the pocket. He will show up in the midst of pressure. He will show up in pressurized situations and answer the call and respond. This is what he does. He is clearly of the ilk of his daddy. There's no question about it, okay? And then you got this cat, Travis Hunter, who, as far as I'm concerned, is one of the top 2 leading candidates, if not the leading candidate for the Heisman, all right? And by the way, Shedeur Sanders should be considered for a Heisman considering the way that he has played. So I look at it from that standpoint, and I'm thinking about college football, which is getting to my point, and this is probably going to tick you off. Sizzle does matter. It does matter. It should matter. College football needs to get with the program and stop trying to make everybody happy. You ain't never cared about making people happy before. Don't start now. Make yourself happy.
Please, everyone,
get
please
the draw
no
the ratings. Okay? Excuse me?
Please, everyone, please no one.
Okay. I don't know what that means, Molly, but okay, I'll think about it for a second.
Oh, my goodness.
Okay, in the
end, what it means.
Shedeur, Travis Hunter, prime time in the college football playoffs is not a bad thing.
Sizzle.
For ratings.
He should just come to the New York Football Giants.
That would help. You need some help.
That's where Shedeur should come and add a little sizzle.
Well, this ain't him transferring or getting, trying to sit up there and go to the transfer portal or something. They got to draft him.
Okay,
you know what I'm saying? I mean, you got to get there.
It's what I care about. Blockbuster, learn a thing or two about it, okay?
I'll tell you one thing, Paulie, you still with us?
Yes, he's here.
This college playoff is very good.
It is.
You got the 12 games.
I've been asking
you got all these rounds. You're going to have a wonderful New Year's Eve. I mean, this is fun.
Be honest, all you want to do is gamble on it.
Well,
that's all you care about. You're
which,
thinking about being with your family, calling Fat Rob, and making it interesting. Your
New Year's Eve, there's no kiss at midnight for me. There's a game at 7:30 on New Year's Eve.
I'm going to be somewhere very warm on New Year's Eve. All right, Paulie Paul, it's been real, my friend.
My man.
We'll see you in person soon. It's been way too long. We miss you.